Welcome to the Krusty Fox, and today we're crossing the barren desert that is Season 1, Episode 11 of Sex and the City, entitled The Drought. But before we do that, last time I asked you whether you'd go full Charlotte on your friend if they gave their spawn the baby name you'd been saving for your own crotch fruit. And this week we've got a twofer. Commenter Bianca wouldn't, calling out Ms. York for not realising that the two Shaylas would probably never meet. And commenter Gray said they might, but only if the other mother in question was mean about it. Now all that's left is for the two of you to steal each other's baby names and see what happens. Keep us updated. New York City is all about sex, says Carrie to open the episode, scoring a 10 for judgment but a solid 0 for self-awareness considering that talking about it is her whole career. She says that when you do get someone in bed, that's where the real fun begins. The irony of this line being accompanied by a scene of her in bed with Mr. Big is predictably lost on her. As they messily share a nutty yogurt in what I presume was supposed to be a sexy scene, I messily share the lunch I ate 3 hours ago with the floor. Carrie says she and Big growing more comfortable sleeping next to each other is the way she always dreamed it could be. Sadly, that little dream comes tooting to an end when she wakes up one morning and lets out a tremendous buttock bassoon right next to Big. Rather than deal with this as the perfectly normal bodily function it is, Carrie Dutch ovens herself and runs face first into the bedroom door in a desperate attempt to hide her shame. Dashing out of the apartment like she'd stolen the silverware, she spends the whole day reliving the apparent trauma of her accidental arsebark with an intensity that suggests that she also followed through. After forcing herself to laugh it off with Big over takeout the next night, they head to bed. And that's where the problems really begin, because Big rebuffs Carrie's advances in favour of an early night, which she attributes to her backdoor breeze. As expected, Carrie careens into a freakout about what it all means and meets up with Miranda at a nail salon to publicly discuss her latest conflama. By this point, Big has stonewalled Carrie's attempts at seduction twice more, which Miranda counters with an admission that she hasn't had any bam bam in the ham ham for a full 3 months. In a sign of the times, Miranda says she spent all of her spare time renting videos at Blockbuster instead. I really hope you all remember what Blockbuster was, because if not, I'm going to retire to a cave and continue to waste away into an aged husk. Miranda is refreshingly unbothered when Carrie admits that she crimped off some breakfast biscuits in Big's bed. She's rightfully more concerned by Carrie's ridiculous claims that her rectal dragon shout has rendered her forever unworthy of him. Carrie asks deadpan serious whether it's normal to be in bed next to your boyfriend and not do anything. Given that she strikes me as the type to want an immediate post-coitus appraisal like her Happy Valley is getting a performance review, I can understand Big's need for a break. Having been met with far too much logic and reason so far, Carrie seeks out Samantha for an alternate take. At a yoga class, Samantha delivers the goods. She tells Carrie that her dry spell is a barometer of her relationship's health and that cutting the cheese in front of Big was a huge smelly no-no. In any event, Samantha is otherwise occupied trying to get their yoga instructor, Siddhartha, to take care of her downward-facing dog split. After the class, she learns that he practices tantric celibacy. Following her initial disbelief that anybody could turn down a good bone storming, she starts to consider whether there might be something to his hands-off approach. For reasons better kept to herself, Carrie decides to go 3 for 3 in advice about her own involuntary celibacy by going to dinner with Charlotte. As expected, Pollyanna York doesn't see any issue with it and shares that she and her new boyfriend Kevin have been going out for weeks and barely made it past first base. Charlotte smugly says that she loves how he respects her boundaries. When Kevin shows up for the meal too, he wipes the grin right off her face by revealing that years ago, at least part of him made it past Carrie's boundaries. After a quick grilling, although not the kind Carrie would like, it's established that she ended things between them because Kevin was a sex maniac. Charlotte assumes that his newfound restraint must therefore all be for her. As a result, she decides to have Carrie's sloppy seconds for dessert. Except Kevin's not into it because since going on Prozac, his libido is non-existent. That he goes on to describe his baloney pony as looking like taffy on occasion is a bit too much even for me. Across town, Samantha is receiving some tantric tutelage from her new instructor. Siddhartha, by the way, is the original name of the Buddha, so props to the writers for picking up one book about Buddhism and co-opting literally the first name they saw. Samantha is understandably distracted from the lesson by her teacher's bony cannelloni standing at full mast. Despite offering him a complimentary spit and shine, she finds herself rebuffed again. Inspired by her neighbours across the street making the beast with two backs in front of an open window, Carrie rocks up at Big's apartment. Once there, she does her best impression of sexy, which turns out to be just wearing a skirt and writhing all over him like a snake dying on a hot sidewalk. When he tells her to stop, she storms out and waits what she describes as an obligatory 10 seconds in the hallway to see if he'll come after her. Wisely, he doesn't. Once home, she immediately checks her voicemail, certain that he'll have left a grovelling message of apology. Even more wisely, he hasn't. 2 days later, Carrie reassures herself that she isn't having an insane overreaction by repainting her whole kitchen as a distraction. Miranda comes over to provide some moral support, but just as they're making some headway into how Carrie pretends to be an idealised version of herself around Big, they spot the neighbours crashing the custard truck in full view of the street again. In a delightfully inappropriate and lightly criminal scene, the rest of the group come over and all 4 of them eat snacks and watch the unsuspecting couple go at it. This spot of voyeurism inspires Charlotte to try again with Kevin, and Miranda to say that if her sexual starvation stretches to 4 months, she'll hump one of them. All I'm saying is the signs were there, alright? On her way to take out her frustrations on the gummy bear population of the local Blockbuster, Miranda encounters a builder who had catcalled her earlier. While she ignored him before, this time she offers to take him up on his proposition, only for him to sheepishly admit to having a wife. Miranda thinks this is down to him being all talk, but maybe he just recognised her from a police sketch he'd seen of a woman linked to hundreds of men's disappearances and understandably feared for his life. Samantha, while commendably having tried something outside her comfort zone, loses patience with Siddhartha's abstinence. She successfully propositions a guy at her next yoga class and disappears off to combine the tree pose with the triangle. Meanwhile, Professor Charlotte has decided that she can defy medical science and get Kevin's motor running. Unfortunately, the motions she makes in doing so look like she's trying to get a fire going with 2 pebbles and a floppy twig. If you ever think Charlotte might be the least problematic of our Fab Four, then what she does next really puts her back in the running. After giving up her chafy rub and tug, she asks Kevin whether he'd ever stop taking his medication for her. Quick note, if anyone ever asks you a question like this, make sure you blow out their eardrums with a sonic boom in your wake as you take your immediate leave. Despite praising Kevin's lack of interest in her body when she thought it was out of respect, discovering that it's a medical issue leads her to end things. 1 part healthy choice, 1 part crass selfishness. Which could be the tagline for the whole show, come to think of it. Back at Carrie's DIY kitchen balls up, which she describes as fabulous but looks to me like she taped a paintbrush to a stray cat and forced it to freebase catnip, Big finally shows up. She admits that she was having a meltdown when they last saw each other, a piece of honesty about as rare as rocking horse turds. After becoming another witness to Carrie's neighbour's floor show, Big finally takes her to bed to end their drought. The show wants us to think that Big coming over to Carrie's apartment, liking it, and being okay with her more chaotic side is him coming to terms with who he now knows her to be, and her becoming more comfortable being her real self around him. Except, this is the same Carrie who has, in a matter of months, stalked his ex-wife for intel, manipulated him into monogamy by threatening to get with someone else, and at least considered marrying her gay best friend because Big didn't want to take the plunge again. Carrie being a bit of a mess is hardly news to him. So all we're left with is that this whole thing has been one intense self-inflicted tailspin over what turned out to be a perfectly normal situation in the bedroom. After all, if being rejected 3 times is grounds for a breakdown, then every dating show would have a conveyor belt leading directly to the nearest psych ward. So that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like to let me know, subscribe for more content like this, and if you can, share these videos so more people can watch on in horror with us. Also, don't forget that the poll is still live where you can have your say on which series I cover after Season 1 is complete. Make sure you cast your vote over in the Community tab. And if you're still with me, here's this week's question. Was Carrie's concern over her bum quack in any way understandable? Answers in the comments below, and the best will make an appearance in the next video. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.